Welcome, everyone, once more to Sports Legends of the Carolinas. I'm your host, Scott Fowler, sports columnist for the Charlotte Observer. Today, we're thrilled to welcome one of the greatest coaches to ever do it, Roy Williams.
I've been the luckiest guy alive. No one has been more fortunate than me. Thank you.
Coach Williams won 3 national championships as the head coach of the Tar Heels in 2005, 2009, and 2017. He retired in April 2021 as the only head coach in college basketball history to ever win more than 400 games at 2 different schools. 418 at Kansas, where he coached for 15 years, and 485 at North Carolina, his alma mater, where he coached for 18 more.
I'm retired and resigning as men's basketball coach at North Carolina. It's been a thrill. It has been unbelievable. It's coaching. And that's all I've ever wanted to do.
Roy Williams was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame way back in 2007, and that was before 2 of his 3 national titles.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, to say the least. People told me it wouldn't hit me until I stood up here before you. And they're right, because this is pretty cool.
And we could spend the rest of this podcast reading off more of his accomplishments, but you wouldn't want that, and neither would he. You want to hear from old Roy, who was kind enough to do this interview at our Charlotte Observer office in Charlotte. So let's do that. It's time to hear from Coach Roy Williams. And I promise this conversation is going to veer in all sorts of unexpected directions. So buckle up. Coach, welcome to the show.
Scott, thank you very much. I hope it doesn't kill your ratings.
So last night I was rewatching in preparation for this, your retirement press conference, and listening to that once again. Again, it was on April 1st, 2021, and people, of course, thought it was April Fool's joke, which it wasn't. But you said then about whatever was next after coaching basketball, quote, "I'm scared to death of the next phase."
I love coaching, working with kids on the court, the locker room, the trips, the jump around music, the trying to build a team. I will always love that. And I'm scared to death of the next phase. But I no longer feel that I'm the right man.
So it's been about a year and a half now, and I wonder how that next phase has turned out, and has it been scary?
Some of it has been scary because I don't know what's coming yet,
Yeah.
next kind of thing. But it's also been great. For me, the best thing is I've been able to spend more time with my children, in particular the grandkids, and we've taken some trips with the grandkids, made it an educational thing a little bit too. And Wanda and I were both public school teachers at one time, so we believe in those kind of things. So that part has really been good. The scary part is because I didn't know how I would handle not having a team to coach. And that's been really hard because I do miss the coaching tremendously. I mean, I watch every game and, I die with every possession. And I used to never look at the score, and now I look at the score every possession. The tip, we get it, go down score, and it's 2-0, and they miss, and I look at the score. Oh, they got it right. It's still 2-0. We score, now it's 4-0, and I look at the score again. But so I really enjoyed following Coach Davis and our team and that part of it. But I do miss the interactions with the players, the locker room, the bus rides, the practices every day. I miss that tremendously. But, I made decisions for what I thought was the best reason. I just didn't think I was doing it as well anymore, and I couldn't handle that.
And you, off air when we were coming here and we're in our studio in Charlotte, you said, people still don't believe it, but this is really why I retired. Mm-hmm. So tell people who still don't believe it again what you told me.
Yeah, you think about what you're doing, and you're always, as a coach, you're always evaluating. You're evaluating your team, you're evaluating your recruiting, your office, your staff, everything, but you're also evaluating yourself. And I did that every day, every game, every practice. Is it a good practice, bad practice, good game, bad game, good coaching job, bad coaching job? And I did. I got to the point that I didn't feel like I was doing it as well as I had done before. And I really couldn't handle that. I really couldn't, because I knew I wasn't going to cheat my school, and I knew I wasn't going to cheat the kids. And I did. I made this statement, and I even said this to you in the car. The first 31 years as a head coach, there were 2 times that I would go home and sit there and said 2 different occasions, if I had done this or if I hadn't done that, we would have won the game. And that was only 2 times in 31 years. So I felt comfortable about everything we were doing. I was confident. And sometimes you lose because the other team beat you.
Sure.
You got to accept that. But in my last 2 years, there were 3 times that I questioned myself so badly that you couldn't sleep, I couldn't do anything. And so go from 2 times in the first 31 years to 3 times in the last 2. But I didn't feel like I was doing it as well. And that was it.
You know, we did one of these Sports Legends interviews also with Bob McKillop recently, and oddly enough, he said very similar things about that, and that he felt that he was no longer the best coach on his own bench toward the end.
If I proclaim that we're a program constantly in the quest for excellence, I've got to live that message. And I probably could have weathered another year or 2 or 3, but it wouldn't have been right. It wouldn't have been right for Davidson College basketball in the quest for excellence that I always aspired for us to have. I think from the standpoint of do what is the best thing for Davidson, it was the best thing for Davidson College.
He thought his son, Matt McKillop, who's now replaced him, was better. Now, those 3 games, I assume you're referring to the Duke game or one of the
Duke game at home, Clemson game at home, Texas game up in Asheville, then the finals of the Maui Asheville Invitational tournament up there.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 because there were some things that I did or didn't do that I felt like was really, really big in the fact that we lost those 3 games.
How much or how little did name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal play into your decision? Basically
nothing. I mean, I knew that I wouldn't necessarily enjoy some of those things that were coming down the road, but it was 99.9, and I can't even think what the other percentage point would be, but it was 99.9, and I just didn't think I was doing it as well. And I understand what Bobby's saying. I mean, Bob McKillop's one of our great coaches, and yet he coached at Davidson, so he doesn't get the attention that Roy Williams got by coaching at North Carolina. But Bob McKillop's one of our great coaches and has coached well enough to be in the Hall of Fame. But it's hard to do that from Davidson, and that's not fair. But no, Bobby and we're about the same age. Bobby may be one of the few guys a couple of months older than me.
I think he is, yeah, just a little bit, yeah.
But no, it was. I knew that I wouldn't enjoy it as much because I had this belief in what college athletics had always been, and I thought it was great. And we had made it over the last 5 to 10 years so much more student-athlete friendly and had taken better care of the kids and done some things like cost of attendance and that gave them more money. And yes, the universities and everybody's making money and making more money than the players. And it's the name, image, and likeness. I sort of sit on the fence at times because my Peyton Manning is a nice friend. Now, we're not bosom buddies, but the first week after I retired, I got a handwritten note from Peyton. No football player ever did I ever love more than I did Peyton Manning. And I met him when he was in 9th grade when I was recruiting down in Louisiana. But, it's the kind of thing. His last year at Tennessee, and I'm going to miss these numbers, but his last year at Tennessee, they sold 50,000 jerseys with his name on the back at $70 a clip. Now, it could have been $70,000 at $50 a clip. I don't know. But he didn't get 1 cent of that. It's, to me, that's not right.
That's not right.
But, the things that are going on now is really stretching what my belief of college athletics should be. And I'm not if a youngster wants to go straight to the NBA out of high school, I have no problem with that. The NBA should be the one that doesn't want that because they make a lot more mistakes than they do if they take somebody that's played at the college level. But, the transfer portal is the other thing. If a kid wants to transfer, go right ahead. But there is something about making a commitment and really being committed. I told you this. Luke May, who's one of the favorite people in the world, 11 games his freshman year, he didn't even get in the game. And his junior and senior year, everybody in the world knew who Luke May was and was on the team that won a national championship and made the big basket to get us to the Final Four. But nowadays, if a guy doesn't play 11 games his freshman year, he's going to leave. So I hate that part of it. I don't mind a guy leaving, but let there be a little bit of a price. Mm-hmm. And, sitting out a year, I was fine with that. And, again, it's just my own belief. And people say, well, you could leave. And I say, yeah, I could get fired too. That kind of thing. And so it depends on the way you look at it. But no, those two things I knew I would not enjoy as much, but basically had zero effect on my decision.
Your sort of chosen successor, you got into your former chair, Hubert Davis, had an amazing first year. Was it easy to get him there? I mean, did they just take your recommendation automatically? And why did you make that recommendation?
Well, I made the recommendation and pushed really hard. I think I made it uncomfortable for some people at times. But there's 3 or 4 things. Well, number one, the last recruit I had as an assistant coach to come to North Carolina was Hubert Davis. So we go back a long way. Everything he's done in his life, he's overachieved. People didn't think he could play at North Carolina. Well, he did. People didn't think he'd start at North Carolina. Well, he did. And he became a big-time player at North Carolina. People didn't think he'd be in the NBA, but he was drafted in the first round and played 12 years. So everything he's ever done, he exceeded what people thought. And I love those guys that are overachievers. He's the nicest individual I've ever known in my life, who is also fiercely competitive. And God Almighty, I love that part of it. And so it's, and I thought it was time. And I thought it was time for me to move on. And I just thought he was by far the best candidate. I think that, I'm sure if you cut me, I'm going to bleed. It's going to look like blood. But I think if anybody's ever going to bleed Carolina blue, I think it's going to be me. And I think Hubert's right there in the same league. But to you to be that nice a person and be fiercely competitive, which he is, and to be very bright and very organized, he had everything. And, even early in the season last year, I had some of my buddies getting after me about, well, we're not very good or this kind of stuff. And I just told them just to be quiet. And at the end, and I've said this 100 times, I said it publicly. I did, we were going to finish first, second, or third in the league. And at the end of the year, we had a chance to make a run. And I believe that because we had the parts. We had everything you need to be successful, and Hubert was bright enough and tough enough that he was going to stick to it. They were going to conform to what he wanted to do. There was no doubt in my mind. And I just thought that was a perfect thing, and I just couldn't be prouder of the job that he and the kids did and the way they made that big run at the end. I never thought I would enjoy being a spectator. And yet it was some of the finest, most fun, and one of the finest moments of my life down in New Orleans to see them win and to get to the national championship game.
This year, he will feel, I'm sure, the pressure that you felt many times, which is they will have a great shot at the national championship. In fact, the season may be considered a disappointment if they don't win it. Do you think they'll win the national championship this year?
Well, I think they've got the best chance. And you're right, 2 or 3, maybe 4 times I was in that same position. I loved it. I'd rather people be saying good things about it than bad. And, they can't be all the sports writers and the radio and TV people can't be that dumb. You got to be getting it pretty close. And so he will enjoy that part of it. He'll enjoy the challenge. The kids will enjoy the challenge. And there's been a lot of times where Maryland in 2001, I guess, lost to Duke. And the game they felt like the referees took it. 2002, they came back and won it. We lost in 08 and came back and won it in 09. We lost in 16, came back and won it in 17. North Carolina lost it in 81 with Coach Smith, came back and won it in 82. I mean, the kids get a taste of it, and that's important to them. And they perform even stronger and even better that following year. So I think they've got a great chance. I don't think that you can pick one team and say they're definitely going to win it, but I love having a few bets on the golf course, on the craps table, but I'm not a guy that bets on college athletics. But if I were, that's who I'd bet on.
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back. We are doing this interview, as I mentioned, in Charlotte, which, of course, is now the part-time home of the most famous Tar Heel, Michael Jordan, who owns the NBA Charlotte Hornets. I'm wondering, Coach, if you recall the first time you ever laid eyes on Michael and the first time you knew he was special.
Yeah, no question. It's I can remember where I was when President Kennedy was shot. I'd hate to put it in that context, but everybody has certain things in their life that you remember. And I remember the first time I ever saw Michael, no question. I spoke to Michael's high school coach, Pops Herring, and so Michael was going to come to camp. And so Sunday afternoon during registration, I would be down in Carmichael and had it open, and counselors would bring 20 or 30 kids at a time because the only people that played in Carmichael were the older kids. So it was a way for us to get every little kid the chance to play in there where they'd see on TV also. So I was there for 3 hours, and every 30 minutes they'd bring 20 or 30 new guys. And this one kid came in, and I said, what's your, I'd go around and ask their names and everything. And he said, Mike Jordan. And I said, okay. And I knew I'd had a conversation. And the athletic director for Hanover County Schools had called us about Michael during the year, his junior year. And Coach Guthridge had gone to see him play a game. And he came back and he said, looks like he's unbelievable athletically, but all I saw him do was shoot a lot of long jump shots. And so I called Pops back and we talked. So we thought he was going to be really good. And so that Sunday afternoon, he was there with those kids, and I kept him a second period. I told the counselor, I said, take him on back. I want him to stay one more period. And so I watched him, and I thought, oh, my goodness. And then he left and went back to Granville. From Carmichael to Granville was almost a mile.
Yeah.
He walked, okay, because at the counselor, there was no bus. They walked. So he got in the next group, and he came down again. And I thought, this kid is really something. So that time I gave him a ride back in my car. That was the last period. But that night I told Eddie Fogler, I think I just saw the best 6'4" high school player I've ever seen. And in saying that, and Michael said, Eddie said, oh my gosh, who? And I told him, well, by the end of the week, Coach Smith was having breakfast and lunch and dinner with him.
Oh, so really? Yeah.
He got to the important person, but no, by the end of that week, we knew that he was really, really something special. And in saying that, Dean Smith, Bill Guthridge, Eddie Fogler, Roy Williams, none of us could have seen what he was going to do, because he just had that focus, that drive, and it got better. I mean, he got more ferocious competitively with every year. And then the other thing is, from his freshman to sophomore year, he grew from 6'4.5" to 6'6". I measured everybody. I worked for Coach Smith for 10 years. On October 14th, we measured everybody, weighed everybody. I got their vertical jump, their reaching height, took out on the track.
You literally measured them?
Everyone for 10 years.
Really?
The same spot in the hallway in Carmichael Auditorium, so that way I knew it was valid because it never changed. And then we went out and timed them in the 40-yard dash and timed them in the mile run. And I did that every year for 10 years, and it was as consistent as you could possibly be. And so he goes from 6'4.5" to 6'6", and he was quicker. He was bigger and stronger, but he was quicker too. And his time, I'll never forget, in the 40 was like 4.55 or something like that his freshman year. I mean, it was very good. Yeah. But in his sophomore year, and it was Mark Davis, Bill Guthridge, and Roy Williams. We've all got stopwatches. And we're out there, and so we yell go, and we try to start on their first movement. We know we're not professionals or anything, but they go down, and I looked at my stopwatch, and I said, I said, Coach Guthridge, what'd you get? He said, I'm not sure. And Mark Davis says, I got 4.40. And I'm looking at mine, and I got 4.38. Coach Guthridge had 4.39. And so I said, maybe we all missed it. I said, Michael, rest for a couple minutes, but I need you to do yours over again. So we ran a couple of other guys, and I said, all right, Michael, we're ready for you now. And he walked past me, and that little smart aleck, little grin. He says, faster than you thought, huh? Just like that. And so we timed him again. Sure enough, it was like 4.38, 4.39. So he's 6'4.5" to 6'6". He's bigger, he's stronger, and a lot quicker, more focused, tougher. But in saying again all those things, nobody would have predicted what he's done.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Jordan.
Thank you. I was an anti-Carolina guy. I hated UNC. And here I ended up at UNC. And that wasn't a disrespect to any of my Carolina guys. They all know that I'm true blue Carolina guy to the heart.
He just had the best focus and the toughness and the drive to be the best more than anybody ever. Tiger Woods, Tyler Hansbrough, Michael Jordan.
Wow.
I've never seen anybody that's in the league with those three guys.
In terms of sheer
desire, willpower, focus. I keep using the word focus. They didn't let anything get in their way. and the desire and the toughness. I mean, I was very fortunate.
You said in that retirement press conference, too, something, this wasn't really about you retiring, but you just mentioned at the time, you said Marcus Paige made the most unbelievable shot I've ever seen. This was in 2016 to tie the Villanova game. Seemed like it was going to go into overtime. And, of course, it did not. But so that made me think, okay, well, so there's really probably, in my opinion, the three best shots in Carolina history in some order. Michael's in 82.
18. Jordan. It's over. It's over.
Luke Mays against Kentucky.
Looks up. Driving in. May for the win. North Carolina with 0.3 seconds to go. An incredible shot.
And Marcus is in that 2016 game.
It's Paige off balance. Puts it out. Impossible. How did he do that? How about that kid?
But would you order them? Would you put Marcus as number one because of the degree of difficulty? How would you order those?
Well, I would put Marcus as number one. The reason is the shot that Michael made, I could make. The shot that Luke May made, I could make.
Okay.
There were a time in my life, not today,
Right.
I'd take the 1 out of 20 or something like that. The shot that Marcus made, I couldn't make. So that was part of it. We were 10 down with like 4 minutes to go in that game, and he had willed us back to get us into that spot. And the contortion of his body and the things were just unbelievable. And Michael Jordan's was winning a national championship, okay? And that elevates it up there as well. But just for the shot, I would go Marcus 1, Michael 2. And I even told Michael, I said, if we'd gotten it into overtime and won, that would have gone down as the most famous. Your shot would have been number 2.
What did he say?
He just laughed. He said that'd be okay because he was there at the game.
Oh, that's right.
And I'm sitting outside the locker room in a little holding area, and I'm crushed. And all of a sudden, somebody comes and puts their big arms around me in a bear hug and said something to me, and I looked up, and it was Michael. And I mean, Scott, think of this. Marcus Paige did everything he could do in every game, every practice, every day. Student Athlete of the Year in the ACC. I mean, just as good as you can be. What am I going to say to Marcus Paige in that locker room? It's the most inadequate feeling. I still get emotional about it. The most inadequate feeling I ever had in my life. And so I said, Michael, would you mind just going in there and telling him you're proud of him? I just need a couple more seconds because I don't know what I'm going to say. And the funny thing is, so he goes in the locker room, and Marcus has got his head in a towel, and he's crying. And he told me later, he said, all of a sudden, Coach, I realized that wasn't you talking. He said, I pulled that towel down and opened before I could see him. And he said, oh, my God, this is Michael Jordan here talking to us. But no, and people asked me in 2017 if I thought he was coming to the game. And I said, no, he's not coming. He came last year and we lost. He ain't coming back. So this past year, people would ask, oh, we heard Michael's coming. I said, well, good. They said, well, do you think he's coming? I said, no, I don't think he's coming. They said, well, we think he's coming. I said, okay, then don't ask me. But he's a little superstitious like I am. But just think of the difference, though, is that Michael Jordan did that as a freshman. Marcus Paige was a senior, and he knew this was it. And so it was just, but Michael Jordan made that shot as a freshman. And I still say the left-handed driving layup that he made over Patrick Ewing in the second half was a lot tougher shot than the one he made to win the national
hit almost the top of the backboard, if I remember.
It did get at the top of the square.
The next hell ball would go to Georgetown. Is Jordan on the what a layup! He put that ball up about 12 feet.
Wow.
And I mean, because he had to get it up over Patrick, and he did it effortlessly, but no, they were all pretty good shots.
Yeah, they were.
I'm glad I saw all three of them.
You mentioned Coach Smith, and I would be remiss not to ask you about him. I think you said in your retirement press conference that you visited his gravesite sometimes, and that also I believe you said, quote, I talked to him every night.
I talked to him about that several years later. Needless to say, I didn't talk to him after last season, even though I talked to him every night.
It was something important when I was at Kansas. I mean, I'm coaching at a place where James Naismith coached, and Fog Allen, who was Doc Allen was the father of basketball coaching. He's the one that went to James Naismith and said, I want to coach. And Dr. Naismith said, you can't coach basketball. And Doc Allen said, yes, I can. And so Coach Smith played for Doc Allen. But Coach Smith, to me, was the epitome of the perfect basketball coach. He was fiercely competitive, but he did things the right way, never cheated to do anything to get any player, nothing, period, the end. He was perfect. And, he smoked and did some other things, but for a basketball coach, I thought he was perfect. And every day that I coached, I wanted to do some things that he would approve of. It's almost like that I wanted his approval. And after I did it, I wanted him to feel good about it. And it's because he had such an influence on me. I'd been a high school coach for 5 years, but my development as a basketball coach in those 10 years I was with him came in leaps and bounds of just how to treat people and doing things for people without them knowing about it. Most people do a favor for somebody and they tell them about it.
Sure.
Coach Smith would always do things and wouldn't try to get any credit for it. And I loved that part of it. And my feel for the other programs and the other teams at the University of North Carolina, everything about Roy Williams as a coach was influenced more by Dean Smith than anything. So I don't know what I said there. Whatever I said, I know that I didn't make up any lies, but I would always think, what would Coach Smith want me to do right now? And I think that he would have been proud of the fact that I stopped.
Really?
Because he would have felt like, if you don't think you're doing it as well, I understand. Because he was great. I mean, basically, before he passed, he would have time periods where he'd come in and out.
Right.
Of making, talking to you. And it was his birthday. And I had cake and ice cream in the office for him every day on his birthday from the first year I got there until the end. And the last year that he was alive for his birthday, he came up in the office and Linnea brought him up and he sat there and, didn't say much, but he ate some cake and ate some ice cream. And all of a sudden he got this look on his face and he looked at me and he said, you're doing a great job. And it hit me so hard. But if you're going to think and remember something about somebody, if they say something positive, that's pretty doggone good.
Yeah.
So that was the way I was with him. And I knew that nobody's perfect.
Right.
And Coach Smith wasn't. But he was as close to perfect as any person I've ever seen, and he was as close to perfect on a basketball court of anybody I've ever seen.
And yet you did some things differently from him.
Yeah, and the night before I left, went to Kansas, we had dinner at his house, and we were out in the driveway, and I'm getting ready to get, I said, I hope I don't let you down. And this is your alma mater. And he said, you just be yourself. That's all you got to do. Because his biggest worry about me was how hard I took the losses as an assistant. And said they're going to be a lot worse as the head coach. But he did. He said, just be yourself. And so I never did try to be anybody else. Yes, I would try not to curse because Coach Smith didn't do it and I thought that was the right way or something. But, I did a lot of things that he wouldn't do. And, we played even faster. Mm-hmm. And, it's just kind of things but the foundation of me as a basketball coach was Dean Smith.
This was the scene just moments before the starting lineups were announced. Both the teams arm in arm with a moment of silence, honoring the memory of the great Dean Smith. I think even the closest Tar Heel fans to Roy Williams would tell you that Mike Krzyzewski's statements in the aftermath of his passing were some of the most poignant made. Certainly he is walking in similar shoes to that of Dean Smith.
So I'm interested in how your relationship evolved with Coach K, because I would assume when I was there in the mid-'80s going to school, and it was 1984 when he started in about the double standard that existed between UNC and the rest of the league. You were very, very loyal to Coach Smith. I can't imagine you were too fond of him at that point.
When Mike first came, he was sort of like me at Kansas. They didn't want me, and a lot of other people didn't want Mike when he first came, but he stood the test of time with his organization, his intelligence, his toughness, his ability. And so what he's done, I have tremendous respect for. There were some things that were said or done at that time I didn't think were right, but that's okay. But it was different at that time, too, because he was a young guy coming in, and he had to make sure everybody understood, hey, I'm going to fight for what I think is right. And so I was never bothered by some of the things. Some of the things that were said, I didn't think that was right, but that's okay. But I remember going and taking our JV team from North Carolina over to Duke, because for 2 years they had a JV team. And we played twice each year. And yes, we were 4-0, but I won't say anything about that. But I can remember sitting there. They had just finished practice of varsity, and they were trying to clean the floor and get the seats out for the JV game. Excuse me, and Michael and I sat there and talked for 30 minutes. And I left there thinking, okay, that guy thinks the same things I do about college athletics. And we were on the National Association of Basketball Coaches Board of Directors and committees for so many years, and invariably our ideas and thoughts for college athletics were very, very close. And almost all the time we were on the same page. And yet, when he said there's a double standard for Coach Smith, I didn't think that was right and didn't like that at all. And I don't care. I mean, it's the truth. It's what he thought. That's fine. But I didn't think that it was true. I didn't like the way that it was said. But Mike Krzyzewski had got to stand up for his program too. Rick Barnes and Coach Smith had a little tete-a-tete kind of thing. And Rick Barnes called me. And Rick is a great friend, and still we talk to each other. And but that was between them. And as coach, sometimes you've got to draw a line in the sand for your players to understand. And I thought, looking back on it now, that's what Mike Krzyzewski did. That's what Rick Barnes did. And Coach Smith did that to some people as well.
Sure.
And Roy Williams did too. And Roy Williams had it done to him. So it's part of coaching kind of thing.
How would you characterize the UNC-Duke rivalry in general? You've seen a ton of, Yankees, Red Sox, all the big ones. How would you characterize it?
In college sports, I don't even think it's even close. I mean, and what the two programs have achieved individually, but 10 miles apart has a lot to do with it. We recruit a guy, bring him in on Saturday, the Raleigh-Durham airport. He goes home on Sunday. The next weekend he comes in the same airport, visits Duke, and goes home. So there were a lot of things there that perhaps made it even more. When I was assistant, the Duke guys used to come over and play pickup at Carmichael with our guys. And then later on, when we had the Smith Center, they came over and played pickup with our guys there. So the rivalry to me is the best rivalry in all of college sports. The only thing that comes close in college sports to me is Ohio State, Michigan, and that just comes close. But no, all the similarities, the distance apart, the same league. I mean, you can just go down and up and down the list. I think it's by far, and for so many years, I felt really very flattered to be involved in it in a small part. But I loved it, absolutely loved it.
Did you, take more satisfaction beating Duke than anyone else?
Not really. Some of the games, when Austin Rivers made a 3 to beat us at the end of the game, and they still use that. That was 2012. It's still up on their scoreboard. I love those kind of things, But 3 weeks later, we played them in their building when we had them 48-24 at halftime. But for those 3 weeks, it was HELL. That's what it was for me. So no, the games, some of the great games were just off the charts, and I really loved being involved. But I'll never forget Tyler Hansbrough's freshman year going in and beating J.J. Redick and Sheldon Williams on senior night. And after the game, somebody took a picture of 2 Duke students sitting in the stands. No one else was still there. Everybody's gone in there, colored, painted, the whole thing, and they showed up in the Daily Tar Heel. And but same kind. Mike's got some of those games. I mean, he remembers that Austin Rivers shot 2 for the other reasons,
right,
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's just most of the time it's stood up to the pressure and stood up to the boo-ha-ha about getting this big-time game.
You spelled the word HELL, and that's a characteristic of yours too. I wanted to ask you about just that you try hard, it seems, and did in your press conferences, with a slip occasionally to say daggum, frickin', give a flip. You've got some others too, I think. But where does that come from?
Oh, Coach Smith never cursed. I sat beside him on the bench for 10 years, and I played golf with him 100 times. And if you can put up with referees on basketball and play golf and 3-putt or 4-putt or whatever it is, and you don't curse, you don't curse. One of Virginia's former players said that Coach Smith cursed him, which was a lie. I don't care. I'd fight the guy if he's had a chainsaw in his hand right now, because that was a lie. So I had tremendous respect for Coach Smith and didn't feel like I needed to talk like that. But yes, I slipped up. My first year as a head coach, I told the guys they had to give me 7 curse words the whole year. One of the players said the words that I used as curse words weren't really curse words, but I've gotten way worse.
Really?
Yeah. But
is it worse on the golf course? Is that where it gets you?
A little bit of both. I mean, you daggum dummy. God, how you big dummy. How can Wanda wouldn't hit a shot like that? That's be what I'm saying on the golf course. But I'd say probably it depends on how bad I was playing golf or how bad I was coaching. But no, I even as a high school coach, I did that, and I started to say, hey, this is not the way you want your kids to be talked to. And so I tried my best to not do that. If I started cursing, it was really, things weren't really going very well at all. And that's still no excuse. I wish I hadn't done it at all.
But you also have some really interesting terms of endearment. Rascal. I think that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
If you're a rascal, what is a rascal or a sucker? Sometimes you call people a sucker.
Well, the best one is he's a tough little nut.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that's right.
The best
the tough
one.
little nut. Yeah,
it's usually talked about a point guard, the Marcus Paige, the Joel Berrys of the world. And those were all ideas of endearment to me. And it was something that the players, I think they always understood where I stood.
What would you say is the single favorite thing you've done since you've retired?
Single favorite thing I've done since I retired? No question, having more time with the grandkids. It's just 12-year-old boy, 11-year-old little boy, 4-year-old little boy. Finally got a little granddaughter at 3 now, and the little 4-year-old will be 5 at the end of the month of September. But being able to do things with them, Scott, was the one thing that always bothered me, is that I didn't think I did as good a job as I could have done making more time with my family. And, Scotty, for example, said that I would set meals and wouldn't let anybody miss any meals because I was going to be there, and, tried to do family things. But I know I missed a lot of things, and I never could get those back. And so since April 1st, 2021, I've really tried to do more, be there, and have more fun. And I've gone on 3 educational trips with the 12-year-old, 11-year-old. Just got back from Tryon Palace down in New Bern and went to Atlantic Beach and did those things. Went with my daughter's dance studio down to Orlando this summer. A COVID convention broke out, including me for the second time.
Oh, shoot, really?
And
man.
But I've been able to do more of those things than I ever had before. And this is nowhere near as good as that, but I did have my second hole-in-one. It's 21 years ago, and then had one about 3 weeks ago.
Really?
And so
where was that?
Hendersonville Country Club,
all right,
up in the mountains. And the craziest thing was I've had 2, both of them on short par 3s. One was in Kansas, and we lived on the golf course, and I got home and got Wanda. I said, come on, I'll show you where I made a hole-in-one. Somebody already called her or something other. So we went down, and she said, how far is that? And I said, 128 yards. And she said, that's so close it shouldn't even count. I said, get in the cart, let's go home. And so this time it was even worse because it was an elevated tee, but it was 125 yards playing 116 because of the elevation. But the good thing is both of them I saw. Both times they hit it about 15 feet past the hole and backed it up into the hole both times. But this time it's so crazy because everybody's jumping around. People started coming out of houses because I'm acting a fool. And so my buddies are with me in the whole bit. And so I get the ball out of the cup and we go over and hit the next tee. And I said, gosh, we didn't even take a picture. I don't even know how to act. And so Buzzy was one of my friends there with me. And I said, Buzzy, come stand over here and we'll get somebody else to take a picture where we can see the green in the background. So I walk over to the back of the tee and I looked over at the green. All of a sudden the ball hits and goes in the hole. The group behind us, a guy had a hole-in-one, I think it's number 1312 at Hendersonville Country Club. Had not had a hole-in-one there all summer. I make one. There's a guy behind us, and the next group made one right behind me.
Got contagious.
Yeah. Sort of made my feelings go down. I thought I'd done something special, kind of thing. So
you thought you were like playing putt-putt, where people get it at the beach or something.
That's right.
Well, that's neat. You mentioned earlier off air, but if you could only play one golf course the rest of your life, where would that be?
You know, and I'll tell you another part of that's good. If I could be there by just snapping my fingers, I'd play Grandfather Mountain. I'm an old mountain boy, and it's the most beautiful place. Mr. Morton was just off the charts, loved North Carolina, the state, the university, North Carolina's Tar Heel basketball team, and he was great. And his grandson, Jack's, still working, taking the pictures. But I just thought that was the most beautiful. And it's the most pressure I've ever felt on the golf course, because Coach Smith set it up for me to go there the first time I ever went. And at one time I thought I could play, not anymore, but I had 3 handicap at one time and thought I could play. So Coach Smith says, all right, I bet you $5 you can't shoot in the 70s from the blue tees. And I said, okay. And so at that time, courses had blue, white, and ladies' tees. Now you got 12 tees on some of them or something or other. But so we finished, my high school buddies were with me. I said, guys, we got to back up. And I said, why? And I said, because I made the bet with Coach Smith. 3 guys said, we didn't make that bet. So on the 18th fairway, I'm standing in the middle of the fairway, and I'm 180 yards out. And if I knock it in the middle of the green and 2-putt, I'm going to shoot 78. It's the only time in my life I had backed off of a shot.
Really?
I was feeling so much pressure. Coach Smith's 200 miles away for $5.
He has quite an effect on you.
Yeah,
for $5.
Yeah, so I backed off of it. And then I hit it in the middle of the green, 2-putted. So I beat him out of $5. But it also shows that golf is the one thing that I can get away. I feel like I can compete myself. In basketball, you watched, I stood over and yelled, run, run, run. I wasn't doing anything. And in golf, you got to do it yourself. And so I adopted that after I stopped playing after my freshman year at North Carolina, was a way for me to compete. And last week I had 2 of my grandsons, and we went over to Quail Hollow and played 6 holes. I just love that part of it. But I love the competition part. And people would say, what would be your dream foursome? And, they'd think I'd say Michael and Beyonce and Arnold Palmer or something like that. But it'd be 3 of my buddies, because that's where I love it, is being able to, my high school coach, some of my teammates, guys that I played with and against, I still play with those guys. And that's where I can really have fun.
Thanks so much for listening to Sports Legends of the Carolinas. You've just heard the first half of our conversation, but there's much more to come.
But at the end, Scott, I'll tell you this, sometimes I wouldn't call it just so I'd give them something to talk about.
No way.
Oh, it would.
Really? You are stubborn.
Somebody said, you want to call it time? I said, no, let's give them something to talk about. But that's exactly the way it was.
For that, please purchase a premium subscription to our show, exclusively on Apple Podcasts. And for video of these interviews, visit charlotteobserver.com/sportslegends.
I've been the luckiest guy alive. My family at home, my family on the court. No one has been more fortunate than me. Thank you.
I'm Scott Fowler, and this is Sports Legends of the Carolinas. This show is produced by Jeff Seiner and Kata Stevens, and the director of audio at McClatchy is Davin Coger. For lots more content and to continue supporting this kind of work, please visit charlotteobserver.com/sportslegends and consider a digital subscription. Connect with me on Twitter at Scott_Fowler or by email at sfowler@charlotteobserver.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please share with a friend. See you next week.